welcome to Leadership and Reinvention, the podcast for leaders on a journey filled with twists, turns, and new possibilities. I'm Marissa Prazen, and along with my co-host Mike Cloutier, in each episode we explore the moments that spark transformation, challenge perspectives, and redefine success. Whether you're making a career shift or looking to lead with impact, this is your space to rethink, pivot, and grow. Let's dive in. Welcome to Leadership and Reinvention. We are thrilled to have our guest, Gail Tatebe, with us today. She is the founder of Key Explore. Welcome, Gail.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Super. We're really happy to have you here, along with my co-host, of course, Mike Cloutier. Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
Hey, Marissa. Hey, Gail. Very nice to meet you, and super excited about getting started today and hearing all about your amazing story. So great to be back.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, as everyone knows, at Leadership and Reinvention, we talk about amazing stories of pivots and reinvention and great stories that everybody shares with us in terms of their leadership journey and what they're doing in their careers. And so today with Gail, I've had the pleasure of knowing Gail for 10 years, more than 10 years. We were actually reminiscing a little bit before the recording.
Time flies.
It does. And we met actually both working at Novartis. So we're both from the pharmaceutical industry. And Gail has had an incredible career working in pharma and sales and marketing. She was so incredibly successful. And then ventured out in the world of entrepreneurship and is now the, as I mentioned, founder of Key Explore. But the best way for us to get started, Gail, is to hear the story from you. So maybe you could take us through a quick intro of your journey and share with our audience a little bit about your twists and turns on your career.
Sure, absolutely. So thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure. And Marissa, really, who would have thought that we'd be here today? Okay, so my formal training is in accounting. And so my first job was in the accounting department of a transport company. But I very quickly decided that I wanted to work in marketing. So I started speaking to the marketing people, asked a lot of questions, remained curious, and was very explicit that I was interested in a marketing role. And I eventually transitioned into a marketing role within the same company. So I'm very grateful to them for that. That was kind of my first pivot. And it taught me that I really enjoyed marketing, actually. So from there, I decided that I wanted a marketing job within the pharmaceutical industry. So back then, it was really difficult, or it would have been difficult, to go from accounting to pharma without a science background. You remember those days, right?
I do.
So what I did, kind of long story short, is I decided to move to Hong Kong, which is at the time was an English-speaking Asian country. I knew that a North American university degree would go very far there at that time. And within 2 weeks, I was working for the Asia Pacific office of Merck Frost. And that was the beginning of a 30-year career in pharma in Asia and Canada that ranged from sales rep to marketing and sales director roles. And that's how I ended up in pharma.
Amazing. And what led you to, you said you really wanted to be in pharma. What led you there?
Well, at that time, it was probably one of the most prominent industries in Montreal. There were a lot of companies here, big multinationals, a lot of opportunity. So if you wanted to be in a marketing role, that was very appealing.
So maybe we can kind of break this down into a couple of different parts. So, there's career channel change, and there's physical location shifting. Kind of take us through the emotional side of that journey, because I think a lot of what our viewers, listeners enjoy is understanding that they're not in this transition alone. Other people have been through it. And clearly, the emotional side of things plays a big part. So would love to hear a little bit about your story in that regard.
Absolutely. Well, it was very exciting. I think one of the things about a shift like this or any pivot is mindset. So once you decide what it is you want to do, you need to commit to it and commit to the whole thing. So an entrepreneurship or any pivot journey it's a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So you have to commit to the good, bad, and ugly. So the exciting part of it is you're going to move to a new place, but what comes with that is a lot of unknown. So I think that you have to commit to the decision. But for me on the emotional side, it was nothing short of exciting every day. It's something that I really wanted. I was confident in my decision, and I was just determined to make it work.
And what about your journey to start Key Explorer? Now that's quite a story, not just the decision, but the timing of it.
Yes. So a lot of people thought I was crazy. 5 years ago, so still in pharma, for about 30 years. And 5 years ago, I started noticing that a lot of people were going on burnout leave. And I didn't have a burnout myself, but I came very close. And in the work that I do now, doing girls trips for professional women, it's actually very common. So Mike, to your point, for anybody who's feeling like that, overwhelmed in a crazy job, usually a burnout is not only due to the job. There's a demanding job, but you've got other commitments that are being added to your plate. Family, requirements, somebody's getting sick, caring for aging parents, etc. A burnout is usually a combination of things. It's rarely, only because of work. So I don't think, anybody should feel bad about it. It just means that you've got a superhuman amount of things on your plate. But I just decided that I wanted to be part of the solution. So at that point, I had the idea of doing retreats for a very long time. It's something that I've wanted to do forever. And I just said, now's the time. Somebody in my family got sick around the same time. So it gave me a little bit of the person's fine now, but it gave me a little bit of a life is short moment. And I just said, if I'm going to do these retreats, now's the time. And so that was 5 years ago. And now I'm this is actually the 5th year anniversary of Key Explorer. So I left pharma to start a company that would, as a mission, create a time and place for busy women to reset, these breaks that they need, but they don't have time to organize themselves. So the idea was to do this, give them these breaks before they burn out. And here we are 5 years later.
Amazing. Now, what is really interesting about your story, and I'd love for you to share, is the fact that it's hard enough to make a big decision like this, to start, go in a different direction, leave the security of a corporate job and the paycheck and everything that comes with it. But when you decided to do this, I think it was just like months before we were all hit with COVID. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened, the emotion that came with that? Oh my gosh, what do I do now? Or do I stay on this path? Do I pivot again and go back to the safe zone? Help us understand a little bit about, what happened there.
Sure. That interview question that people ask you, what was the thing that you didn't anticipate? Well, in my case, it was a pandemic. So you're right. It was January 2020. I had a business plan. I had a partner with 25 years of experience in pharma. So I have to say, when the pandemic hit 2 months later in March, I wasn't really worried about it in the beginning because nobody knew what this was. We had no idea that it would last that long. And I knew that I had about 8 or 9 months of training to do. So you have to enroll in courses, you have to write an exam, get a permit. And I knew all of that would take a couple of months. So come September 2020, but just to come back to how it felt, I wasn't that concerned about the pandemic in the beginning. And after, I don't know, I think around April or May, my company offered me my job back. They said the world has changed. We haven't replaced you yet. But to me, I was just, it was that mindset of commitment. This is going to happen. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I'm on this journey and this is what I'm doing. So, I just by September 2020, now my partner decides that there's no travel for the foreseeable future, at least 2 years. She said she needs to pay the bills. So she recycled herself into something else. So now we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm certified. I'm incorporated. I'm ready to go. There's no travel. So that's when I went back to my mission. And what they teach you in business school to always come back to your mission, I can't tell you how true that is, because by coming back to the mission of creating a time and place for women to reset during the pandemic, there was that mission was in such great need. So basically I thought, okay, I can do this with or without travel. So I started approaching some chefs. I love to eat. And these chefs were also at home. Anybody in travel or the hospitality or restaurant business was at home during COVID. They were more than happy to collaborate. And we started doing these private dinner clubs. So you were allowed now we're in 2021. You were allowed to have 10 people per table. We had an English table and a French table. Women just, they came out in spades. So they were sold out all the time, and people would come, we would laugh, we'd cry, connect. And by the end of, within a few minutes, these people, it was like a sisterhood. So this just kept going. We kept doing more and more. It started building a community. And then I would ask them, what else do you want to do? So somebody suggested outdoor iPhone photography classes because it was COVID friendly. You were outside. And then we started doing interior decor classes because that's what everybody did during COVID. So I found an interior designer. She was the instructor for the class. I have a friend who was an adult learning specialist. So she would help these subject matter experts build these classes. And so we just continued that way. And we had a year to build the first trip. So these women were involved in the building of the trip. Where should we go? Do you like this hotel or that hotel? It became a group effort. And so when travel started, these were the first, my first travelers. And fast forward 5 years, now we have some of these women have traveled 2 to 4 times with us. Some of them have done every single trip. They come back every year. We have a greater than 50% return rate because when somebody comes on this trip, the goal is that they enjoy it and they want to come back. So I don't want to say COVID was a blessing, but I think it's an example of whatever happens, really turn the lemons into lemonade. There's an opportunity in everything.
This is so intriguing on so many levels, and I have about 80 questions. But before we go too much further, you hit on something that really is fascinating to me, and that's your mission. And I'm not sure that everyone takes the time to create a mission for themselves. I think as marketers or commercial people, we think about that in terms of our business, whether it be the entity or a brand or whatever. But can you describe the process that you deployed and engaged in to create your mission? And then maybe if you could talk about how you kind of keep it alive and do your check-in. I just would love to hear more about that.
That's a great question. Because I would say that that's easier said than done. So the first thing I would say is before any type of pivot like this, you really need to know yourself. And that's not that easy. After 30 years being in, all sorts of demanding roles, you also become, at some point, you become a spouse, you become a parent, you become a caregiver for aging parents. So it's very easy to put all of these other needs before your own, the company's needs, your family needs, etc. So I found myself after a career in pharma wondering what I want to be when I grow up. So I read a book I read several of them, but there's a book called How to Find Fulfilling Work. It's written by Roman Krosniak. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly, published by the School of Life. There are a lot of exercises in there, but one of them takes all of 5 minutes. And for me, this is what sort of crystallized everything. So basically, you take a blank sheet of paper and you write down the first 5 things that come to mind. What are 5 things that you would like to do? Regardless of whether you have the talent, whether it pays the bills, it doesn't matter. The trick is don't think. And I've given this to many people. So the first 5 things that came out for me, the first one was singer. I didn't know where that came from. I love music, but I can't sing. The second thing was open a restaurant. Made sense. I love to eat. I had do retreats. I had open a flower shop. So the answer doesn't necessarily come from the 5 things that you write down. It comes from the why. Like most things, it comes from the why. So when you start asking, why do I want to be a singer? Well, to me, when I go see a concert, it's an experience. A retreat is an experience. I go to a restaurant, it's everything pointed to an experience. So it was an aha moment, but at the same time, it wasn't, because it made so much sense. I've wanted to do retreats ever since I can remember. So almost everybody that I gave this exercise to said the result wasn't a surprise, because you're coming down to what your passions are and your true self. So I would say that, it takes a long time to figure all of this out. But I think before any intentional pivot, I think you do have to stop, take stock, see who you are at the moment of that pivot. What are your passions? What are you good at? And usually whatever your passion is, you're going to be good at it.
This is something that actually, I don't know if you recall, Gail, but you gave me this advice when I
do remember.
I did. I went through this exercise and I pay it forward. There's so many people I've shared it with, because I found myself that it was a fantastic way to really think about who you are at your core and what you love to do. You talked about, really that, the experiences, right? And I had the same reflection. Now with experiences, mine ended up being different, but definitely it was, highly recommend this exercise to everybody, and completely agree that taking that pause to really understand yourself is so important after doing, the stuff that we do in the corporate world. You're doing a job, you're paying the bills, you're kind of almost going through the motions in some way for a long time. And when you're doing this intentional pivot, it's not a good idea to just dive in, but to really know yourself, then, make the decision of what direction you're going to take. It's so
absolutely. And actually, just to come back to the link to the mission, I think once you go through that exercise, the mission becomes pretty clear. And, in my case, my passion was creating experiences. So, to create the mission of providing a time and place for busy women to reset, it just, it becomes quite obvious. And if you think about your career and the things that you always gravitated towards, you'll find that it was always there. So I was always looking for opportunities to bring my team. I brought them to Harvard. I brought them to Berlin during a conference. I love bringing doctors to conferences and things like that. So, your true self is always there. Sometimes you just need to stop and remember who that was or who that is.
Yeah, as you describe it all makes perfect sense retrospectively, right? Like you just
exactly.
So obvious. As you're going through it, though, as you're transitioning, I mean, clearly, as you spoke about the COVID component of this, that just that alone is a real, you can see where you really shifted and kept true to mission, but had to adapt in a very meaningful way and quite substantial way. But eventually, as the COVID world, shifted, and as we started to return to the old normal, which is the new normal, how what was the process you were undertaking to to check back in? Am I on mission? Or is there a point where you start to have an evaluation of mission? Like I'd be curious to hear about that evolution component.
Yeah, well, I would say, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's exhilarating for sure. When you figure all of this out, you know exactly what you want to do. There are highs and lows. So of course there are moments where, you're in the middle of a pandemic and what am I doing? That will happen. But I think if it comes down to, I'd say probably three things. There's the mindset that we talked about. So you need to commit to your mission and everything that comes with it. So yes, I was very excited about starting, doing these retreats. But what comes with that is you need a permit. What comes with a permit is a financial audit once a year. You need insurance, you need accounting, you need contracts and all of this. So you need to have the mindset that you're committing to all of it, not just the fun part. So then what becomes important is resilience. So I'm sure any entrepreneur is going to talk about resilience to get through all the highs and the lows. So resilience, I think, comes down to your own energy level. A lot of us in pharma are probably type A drivers, workaholics. That's definitely my profile. I still work on resilience all the time. I'm work in progress when it comes to that. So your energy level becomes your most important asset, because without that, you can't show up for your company or your loved ones in a sustainable way. So in terms of checking in, one of the things that's really important is a support system. So obviously on the business side, you need advisors, you need customer feedback and all of that, but you also need a personal support system. And that's something that if I were to do something differently, I would have started that earlier. I underestimated the importance of a personal support system. So I like to call it your personal ad board. And there's a coach. Her name is Brianne Lagori. She's a coach with women leaders in pharma. I attended a session that she gave, a group session, and she talked about the need of having a cheerleader, a critic, a creative thinker, a mentor, and somebody who I forget what the title was, but somebody who pushes you. And you need to have all of these people kind of on your personal ad board in equal parts. So if you only have a cheerleader, that could be your best friend. You do no wrong and you need that person. But if you only have that person, you could miss some of your blind spots. If you only have a critic, then you might miss some opportunities. So it's important to have all of these people, as a support system equally. I think the other type of support system that's really important, and I'm very grateful for Marissa and, Tanya and a few others, you need kind of a peer support system as well. So entrepreneurship is a journey. And so it's important that you reach out and you have a community of other entrepreneurs who understand what you're going through. You share resources, information. Sometimes you have a hotline, just somebody you need to speak with. So there's a whole community of people who have transitioned from corporate to entrepreneurship. And these are incredible people who are accomplishing a lot, like Marissa. And that peer system is very important as well in terms of checking in, keeping you grounded, and keeping you, close to your mission.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Likewise, being able to support each other is so important. what's wonderful is that you've had, now these 5 years. So I can, think back to when we first started speaking about this to where you are now. There's a real confidence. I'm in the right place, and I am where I want to be. Tell us a little bit about the part of the journey where you were just like, oh, am I really where I ought to be? Like those moments that helped you stay on track, even though maybe it was just, should I go back? And because I think a lot of people probably go through that, right? Those moments of, am I in the right place? Did I make the right decision? So now that you've got the benefit of hindsight and lots of success behind you, could you share maybe with our audience a little bit about that journey too? Because that is a lot of the reality of being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And it happens a lot. So, entrepreneurship is, when you talk about pivots, it's probably, one of the, going from corporate to entrepreneurship is a monumental pivot. So, and you do have lows. So this is where your support system is so important. You can't do anything alone when it comes to the actual business side or getting through some of these hurdles or moments of, when you're starting to question things. So I would say that support system is definitely what gets you through these situations. And for sure, when you start reaching out to peers, someone else has gone through exactly what you're going through now. So it's just these people are reminding you about how important your mission is, how passionate you are about it, and that you just need to learn from whatever's going on, pick yourself up and move on. Even with the pandemic, I never doubted that this would happen. I was so sure, whether it was delusional or not. I just knew that this was going to happen. I didn't know when, I didn't know where. And, your support system just reminds you of that.
So true.
So, want to shift a little bit to sort of the evolution and where you are today. If you were to look back and kind of take us through the steps of that. I mean, you described a little bit of it from, thinking you were here, then having to deal with COVID to move, and then evolving. But as you proceeded with the original concept coming to life, how has that transitioned, and what has that part of the journey been like?
Well, I would say it's kind of like chapters. So you have the early years, the startup, when it's very exciting. You're coming up with a company name, you're looking at things like logos and things like that. And everything's a possibility when you start. So I would say one of the most important things in that phase is focus. So when you start a pivot like this, everything sounds like a great idea. So it's easy to say yes to things. So I had set out by, I decided that this was going to be for women. And the only reason why my experiences are for women is because this is what I know best. But I get like, why don't you do trips like this for men? Or why don't you do couples? So the reason I don't do couples is because a lot of other companies do that. I don't do boys trips because that's not in my wheelhouse. What I know is, the girls trips. So focus is really important because that's strategy. Strategy is about focus and about consciously choosing one thing over another. So it's about building yourself a niche and becoming best in class in that space. I'd say the early part, focus is really important. Then you get into kind of like, okay, I've put this out, I've created, I've gotten feedback, then you want to launch. In the launch phase, what's really important is feedback. So you're launching, you're trying things, and you've probably launched in a way that's different from the way you've launched things when you were in the corporate world. You had a lot of different departments, participating in launch. When you're an entrepreneur, you don't have the luxury of all of that. So you're having to launch with less than your 200% certainty, like you do when you're in the corporate world. So it's a bit of somewhat of a trial. You're learning as you go. So that second chapter of the phase, feedback is really important. Feedback from your customers. It's uncomfortable because you're launching without, your 200% certainty. And if you're a type A type perfectionist, it's very uncomfortable, but it's an important step of the process because you've got to learn fast, kind of course correct, and then relaunch again. It's a constant sort of circle of create, launch, learn, repeat. Mm-hmm. So in the third chapter, I would say it's important to go back to that kind of pause and reflect stage because it gets very busy. So it's easy to just like say, okay, I'm just going to repeat the same type of trip every year. But in that phase, it's important to do kind of a stop, start, continue, which we did a lot in pharma. And so, there's kind of a different thing that you need to focus on in the different chapters of that pivot.
It's fascinating. It's not, I keep, my mindset keeps coming back to like, I don't know if this occurs for you. It does for me sometimes that because of my commercial experience, I tend to see things in an evolution of a brand, and so, and sometimes people almost evolve like brands, in a way that, you can kind of plateau with certain things and then you have to kind of find a way to re-energize it because there's still life left in the brand, so to speak. Obviously with people, it's, continues for hopefully quite some time, but at the end of the day, and as I hear you speak to it, it's kind of like, wow, there's little gems in there that are great reminders where you can apply that back to even your thinking about the brand and in your work, and then go back to yourself. And do you find that occurs for you, or is that just sort of
for sure?
Okay, good. So I'm
Absolutely.
not crazy. Okay, good.
No, I would say, I always say this, pharma is a great school. So we had access to best in class training, and you are working with incredible people. So I would say, pharma is where I came from, but I guess in any industry, wherever you are at the moment, be like a sponge, learn whatever you can, sign up for every single training class that you have access to, because everything we learned in pharma is transferable. So, and in general, you'll stay in contact with a lot of those incredible people. And yeah, I would just say that be grateful and leverage all of the training classes and, the things that you have access to while you're in an industry like pharma. It's a fantastic school.
And what about surprises? Were there any big surprises along the way that you're like, ooh, beyond COVID? I know COVID was a big one, but were there others on the entrepreneurial journey that was, I've had, to your point, we get lots of great training, lots of great resources, but as we grow the organization and grow the business that we've started, surprises will come along. Were there ones that you're like, wow, that was just a really great learning and something that you'd like to share with others?
A lot of learnings for sure. But in terms of surprises, I'm like maybe something that I had underestimated, but when you do that, you go through that exercise of setting your priorities and your mission and all of this. A lot of people go in entrepreneurship with some sort of passion. In my case, it was creating experiences. I think what's important to know is that will actually be the fun part, if you want to put it that way, will become about 20% of your time. Mm-hmm. The rest of it is going to be running the business, running the company. So as it turns out, one of my goals was also to have my own company. This isn't my first company. I've had another one in the past. And so, but I think that's something that I had underestimated, the amount of time that will be spent on actually running the company versus the travel, for example, or being on the being on the retreats. I would say that it's very important to know that before going into entrepreneurship.
As you've evolved, have the individuals who attend evolved? And so I guess maybe take us a little bit through, who attends, and is that shifting or changing in any way? I'd be curious to know about the evolution from the beginning to where you are today, and how things are moving in that direction from the attendee experience side.
I think the difference comes from, so these trips are designed for busy professional women who, a lot of my clients do tend to be those drivers. They take on a lot. So they're juggling a very demanding job. They're, sometimes they have their own companies, or they're, leading big teams, but they also tend to be the sandwich generation, where they have, probably teenage children, or, kind of older children. They tend to be caring for aging parents. So it's the type of woman, it's not so much the industry that they're coming from. It's more the situation that they're in. They're juggling a lot. So in the beginning, geographically, a lot of my clients were coming from Montreal, where I'm based. But now a lot of them are coming from the US. They're coming from across Canada, and then somewhat from Montreal. So I think the biggest difference was probably the geography of where my customers are coming from. I've had a few that came from Australia, and it's really organic. So these are women who started out in these dinner clubs during COVID, but they started inviting their friends. These women tend to have fairly large networks. So they're inviting friends from the US and from all these other geographies. So I'd say that is the biggest difference. But in terms of the profile, it's, I guess, part of my mission. So it still is that busy woman who really needs this and doesn't have time to organize it. And we could accomplish the same thing, the time and space to reset in a restaurant here or in Toronto or wherever. But it doesn't hurt that we're in beautiful locations in Sicily or in Puglia, sipping exquisite wine and eating delicious food. But I think it's the geography that's the biggest change.
Speaking of geography, I'd love for our listeners to hear more about some of the amazing locations you go and how you decide. Because as you said, there's a world of opportunities, but you've decided Puglia, you've decided, some other really cool locations. I know you guys were in Spain. How do you go about deciding where you're going to take groups? Is that from your customers? Is that your own inspiration?
It's actually, so the first destination was Lisbon, and that's the trip that was kind of built with my customers and everything. But that started because during COVID, I tried doing, and I use the word tried. This is where trial and error kind of comes in. I tried to do online Zoom cooking classes.
Okay.
So I was speaking with a chef who was, she opened a restaurant in Montreal and then moved to Lisbon. And because she was from Montreal, I had approached her to do a Portuguese cooking class on Zoom. So when that didn't work out, and the reason it didn't work out is because, as you know, doing a podcast or anything virtually is a lot more difficult than it looks. You don't just pop up a phone and start filming. You require sound and, technical experts and all of this. So we decided not to do it, but it did put me in touch with this chef. And then we decided that why don't we just bring everybody to Lisbon, and she could do the cooking class live there. The other thing that made me choose Lisbon is that I have a friend who's a food and travel writer, and she's based in Lisbon. So those were two very strong reasons for choosing Lisbon as the first destination. And then the following destinations are chosen really in two ways. So I get a short list from my food and travel writer friend on what the up and coming destinations are. And then I discuss it with my clients. So usually on the last day of the trip, we're talking about where do you want to go next? Here's the short list. What do you think? I'm consulting with a lot of people who may or may not travel with me in the future. So it comes from, an expert in the field, but also a lot of consulting with my past, current, and future clients, and some of my advisors. So we've been to Lisbon. In year 2, we did Malaga. Last year, we did Puglia in the south of Italy. This year is Sicily, and next year is San Sebastian in Spain.
Amazing. I'm jealous. You get to go on all of these.
Yeah. And to, to the point we talked about before, I'm not complaining. I love these destinations and I love traveling, but it comes with the good, the bad, and the ugly, the insurance, the accounting, etc., and all of that.
Well,
it's not always what it seems.
Well, it's actually, here's a question for you. A big challenge in entrepreneurship, of course, or just running your own company in general, is there's the things we can control and there's the things we can't control. So I'm curious, you're going to locations where you don't necessarily know the language. So much is out of your control, yet you're bringing people, and your desire, of course, is to give them an outstanding experience. How do you navigate some of those challenges in terms of anticipation, of what are some of the things that could come up, and how to do your best to ensure that you're controlling as much as you can control given the environment?
Well, it is a big responsibility because most of my clients are people I know. So I guess I would start by saying that I myself am a very picky traveler. So I like nice hotels. I like to eat. And I'm also an Excel spreadsheet obsessed type A person. So I think those things, although they might be annoying for my family when I travel with them, it serves me well in this role. So once I've chosen the destination, you do your usual research and everything. I talk to people. And then 1 year before bringing them, I do a scouting trip. So I always go on site. I visit all the hotels that I bring my clients to. I usually stay in those hotels. I try all of the activities, the restaurants. I like to know what I'm talking about when I'm presenting these things to my clients. So, and then I'm building a ground team. So every location will have what I call a fixer. So it's somebody who knows the location. They have all the contacts. I need a transport company. I need tour guides. Like, I will never try to be a local expert. So, like in any business situation, you want to hire in the expertise that you don't have yourself. And it starts like that with the scouting trip.
It's awesome. Just really leveraging other people's expertise to take care of the things you can't
It's
control.
Leveraging for sure. Hire in the expertise that you don't have. But, like I said, I like to go to the locations. I like to try everything first so that I've walked in the shoes of, what my clients are about to experience.
So, kind of to bring this back to, if you think about the journey and you think about, this being, the learnings of now a couple of organizations, companies you've started, if you were to advise and at least to get someone started, what would the 3 most critical competencies be? What would your advice be on those competencies for someone who's pivoting and changing?
I would say the 3 most important things, whether competencies or more like, key success factors, I would say, again, the first thing is mindset. to get to that mindset of committing to the journey, you have to do the homework to get there. So it's that take the pause, reflect upon, who you are and what your mission is. And then you need to have the mindset that you're committing to the full journey, as we talked about before. The second thing is definitely resilience, your energy level, make sure you have your support system. And the third thing is focus. So I think those three things go together, because the focus will help your resilience, and you need resilience to commit to that journey.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Love it. And on that note, Gail, is there anything that we haven't asked that you'd like to share with the audience that you'd like from your perspective?
I would say what I would say is never lose faith in yourself. So if you have done the homework, you're sure about what you're doing and about your mission, and it's in line with who you are, you will be able to overcome any barriers. So I think that's the most important thing.
Keeping that belief.
Yeah. I mean, you got to where you are for a reason. Anybody who's thinking about a pivot like this has already earned their stripes in a previous life. So yes, you're starting something new, but you have the ability. You've already overcome many things in your life. You're already resilient. So, just keep the faith.
That's wonderful advice, because so many people we talk to, that imposter syndrome, it creeps in for all of us,
Absolutely.
not just people we talk to, but for all of us, where you're like, oh, should I be doing this? Why am I doing it? Who am I to do this?
Yeah.
But I love that.
And just a quick word about imposter syndrome, because we all have it. And again, in the work that I do with all these professional women who, again, have accomplished a lot, almost everybody has imposter syndrome from what I see. It's a big topic of discussion. We're always talking about it. So if anything, if you do have imposter syndrome, know that you're not the only one. Everybody else in the room probably has it as well.
To just keep going.
Yeah.
I love one of our previous guests, who you also know, Tanya. She said, well, I just, kept saying it's okay. Telling, that side, it's like, it's going to be good. I've done this before. I've gotten through tough things before. I'm going to do it again. And just that.
Yeah, exactly.
Continuous.
Keep the faith, even don't lose faith in yourself. Even when you fail or when you make a mistake, those mistakes are there for a reason. They're there for you to learn something. So, even when you make a mistake, I would say don't lose faith in yourself, because there's a learning experience there.
Oh, totally.
Totally.
Mike, any last questions on your side?
None, but I must say this has been remarkable, tremendous learning. Thank you so much for sharing that, and congratulations on your tremendous success to date. I'm sure that as time goes on, it will continue to evolve and broaden and expand. So I'll look forward to seeing this from afar and making sure that people in my network are aware of it. I'm jealous, because I wish there was a bro version of this. It's not like a typical guy golfing trip, although they're wonderful. But at the end of the day, I just love, how you've brought this connection. I'm sure there is a model that could be evolved. I know I'm not starting it, but at the end of the day, again, congratulations, and what a wonderful opportunity for people. And you can. I sense your pride of accomplishment, and well deserved. So again, thanks for being here and sharing all of this.
Thank you for having me.
And likewise, I want to say the same. It's just been such a joy watching all over these 5 years. You take your business from where it started to where it is today. and to now have you, really along the journey. I know you've been inspiring other entrepreneurs like myself. And I just love seeing the success, and look forward to being on one of those trips very soon. We've talked about that, so I get to experience it firsthand and encourage many, many others to do the same and look into it. So thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your story.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for Marissa for being part of my support system.
Always count on that, with many, many more years to come.
It's a pleasure. All right. Thank you.
Wonderful. So thanks to both of you. Let's make sure that we are able to get all of your contact information out to our listeners. Thanks to all of our listeners for being here with us today. Hope it was as of great value to you as it was for us. And again, thank you. We'll see you next time around, and keep on enjoying your transformations and reinventions, everyone.
Thank you.